The coastal city of Avalon Bay thrived on a precarious blend of old-world charm and pulsating modern energy. Here, ancient legends lived side by side with the neon glow of urban nights, and every crashing wave along the rugged shoreline whispered secrets of times long past. Amidst the clamor of the city's busy streets and the ceaseless roar of the Atlantic, Zoe emerged as an emblem of resilience. With her unmistakable streak of determination and mystery in her eyes, she navigated life as both an independent woman and a reluctant guardian of family secrets that had haunted generations. Zoe's early years were steeped in stories of magic and sacrifice, of a legacy entwined with forces beyond human comprehension. Raised by her grandmother, a wise woman whose tales hinted at a hidden lineage, Zoe inherited more than just memories. She carried within her a spark of defiance and the weight of ancestral expectations. At times, the relentless pull of her family's dark history left her feeling suffocated, yet she refused to be bound by it. Every sunrise was a new opportunity to forge her own destiny, regardless of the shadows lurking in her past. Across town, in an imposing mansion that overlooked both the city's urban sprawl and the untamed wilderness, lived Rorik. As the undisputed alpha of a secretive pack of shifters, Rorik exuded an aura of wild power that both intrigued and intimidated those who crossed his path. His presence was magnetic, a blend of dignified strength, raw passion, and an enigma that spoke of battles fought both within and without. Rorik's world was one of loyalty, honor, and a primal instinct that demanded both respect and surrender. However, beneath his commanding exterior, an insidious loneliness festered, a loneliness that only the genuine touch of an extraordinary soul could ease. Their fated meeting occurred on a stormy autumn evening. The skies, a swirling mosaic of grays and blues, set a dramatic stage as Zoe found herself drawn inexplicably towards the rugged cliffs that bordered Avalon Bay. An inexplicable force guided her steps until she reached a secluded cove, where the chaotic rhythm of nature mirrored the turmoil in her heart. It was in this raw moment that fate intervened as a gust of wind swept past, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of pine and rain, a scent that seemed to herald the arrival of something otherworldly. Rorik, incognito yet ever watchful, had sensed the ripple of destiny before Zoe's arrival. For him, the night was laden with anticipation. He had experienced the call of fate many times over, but never as vividly as he did with Zoe's presence. Clad in a dark leather jacket that hinted at both rebellion and refinement, he stepped out from the shadows. His eyes, glinting with both ferocity and longing, locked onto Zoe's as if drawn by an invisible tether. The air around them grew thick with unspoken promises and an electric charge that belied a connection deeper than physical attraction. In that charged moment, a conversation sparked. "I don't believe in coincidences," Zoe murmured, her voice trembling just slightly as the wind tousled her hair. "There's a pull here, something ancient and untamable." Rorik's reply was equally enigmatic, and sometimes the past calls to those who are brave enough to listen. Their words entwined with the howling winds, each phrase dripping with both guarded caution and undeniable magnetism. As the minutes stretched into hours, the dialogue between them became a duel of vulnerabilities and secrets. Rorik shared hints of his cursed destiny as the Alpha, a role that demanded unyielding strength yet often isolated him from the true warmth of human connection. Zoe, emboldened by an inner fire fueled by years of defiance, confessed her struggle to break free from the chains of a legacy she never chose. Their conversation, punctuated by staccato bursts of laughter and reflective silences, formed the foundation of something neither could fully articulate, a connection that defied the boundaries of mortal understanding. The ambience of the cove was at once serene and tumultuous, much like the inner worlds of the two protagonists. Distant thunder rumbled as if echoing the weight of unspoken words, while the relentless pounding of the waves underscored the urgency of emotions that threatened to overwhelm them. Rorik, whose every instinct screamed to protect, discovered in Zoe a kindred spirit who mirrored his own internal strife. Yet, beneath the surface of their burgeoning bond lay layers of pain and betrayal waiting to be unearthed. Flashbacks of Zoe's childhood began to surface in the quiet moments between their dialogue. She recalled nights spent in her grandmother's embrace, where whispers of a haunted past blended with the tales of a lineage intertwined with mystical forces. One particularly bitter memory was of a night when a fractured family secret nearly shattered her spirit, a secret so well concealed that its revelation would have altered the course of her destiny. At that tender moment, as lightning illuminated the darkened horizon, Zoe silently vowed never to be a victim of her circumstances. This determination, however, would soon be tested by forces beyond her control. Simultaneously, in the decadent solitude of his mansion, Rorik grappled with his own inner demons. The role of Alpha was not simply a mantle of leadership, it was a paradox of raw power and heartfelt solitude. With each passing day, the burden of protecting his pack, and by extension his secret identity, grew heavier. He harbored a truth about his own existence that would, in time, entangle his fate with that of Zoe's. Yet, every revelation came with a price, and the fear of irrevocable loss compelled him to keep parts of his story hidden. Such concealment, though, carried the heavy cost of isolation from the one person who might have unlocked a new beginning. As midnight approached, the initial spark between them began to kindle into a simmering flame of passion and resolve. A shared desire for redemption and a longing to reclaim lives scarred by betrayal began to resonate in every exchanged glance and whispered confession. They found themselves on the precipice of something grand, an uncharted journey towards truth and healing. But as their emotions intertwined, the lurking shadows of their past and the weight of familial curses began to stir, threatening the fragile sanctuary of their newfound alliance. Their budding romance was immediately disrupted by an abrupt and haunting interruption, a call from an unexpected messenger. Zoe's cell phone vibrated insistently, its screen lighting up with a cryptic message that spoke of a mysterious family heirloom lost during a historic betrayal. As she read the terse text, her expression shifted from cautious intrigue to profound distress. "You have no idea what you're stirring up," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously into the distance as if expecting someone, or something, to emerge from the darkness. Rorik's gaze sharpened at the change in her demeanor. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his tone soft yet laden with genuine concern. "We are on the threshold of something important. Do not let fear override destiny." His words, both challenging and comforting, underscored the tension that now coiled in the space between them. The message, cryptic and ominous, served as a harbinger of turmoil. It hinted at betrayals buried deep within Zoe's family history, a betrayal that might very well extend beyond the mortal realm and into the heart of the supernatural. In that moment of uncertainty, the wild passion that had momentarily united them encountered its first formidable test. The shadow of ancestral treachery, intertwined with secrets of the pack and unresolved family feuds, loomed large over their conversation. The storm's persistent roar served as an audible metaphor for the internal chaos both characters were forced to confront. Zoe's defiant spirit clashed with the heavy burden of history, while Rorik found himself wrestling with the inevitable truth that every alpha is destined to face his demons head-on, even if it means betraying the very nature that defines him. They stood in silence, the rhythmic cadence of crashing waves and the sporadic bursts of lightning punctuating their unspoken thoughts. The world around them seemed to hold its breath as the stakes of their meeting suddenly escalated beyond the realm of simple attraction. The supernatural forces that had long whispered beneath the surface of Avalon Bay were now stirring awake, drawn by the melding of two fates that could either heal or irrevocably tear them apart. "Zoe," Rorik began, his voice steady but laced with a tremor of vulnerability, "sometimes to mend what has been broken, one must first confront the deepest betrayals of one's soul." His eyes met hers, and in that gaze lay the promise of both protection and peril. "Your message, it's a reminder that we are tethered to forces that transcend our understanding. We must tread carefully." Zoe's reply was a mixture of resolve and desperation. "I've always believed that every secret, no matter how deeply buried, has the potential to reshape our lives. But if my family's past holds the key to our future, or our ruin, then I must face it regardless of the cost." Her words resonated with the quiet strength of someone who had long since accepted that to embrace the unknown was to risk everything. The conversation drew them inexorably closer, yet the chasm of impending danger widened with each revelation. Outside, the storm intensified, the relentless downpour and howling winds mirroring the surging emotions within their hearts. Every flash of lightning revealed transient images, a metaphorical glimpse of the hidden truths that threatened to dismantle their carefully constructed identities. In those brief instants of stark illumination, shadows danced across their faces, each contour telling a story of loss, longing, and a desperate hope for redemption. As the night wore on, their dialogue evolved into a battle of wills, each word, each pause serving as a declaration of the strength that defined them. Both were at a crossroads. One path led to a future where the past's grip would tighten into an inescapable snare, while the other opened the possibility of redefining destiny itself. Unbeknownst to them, the call of fate was drawing not only their hearts but also the collective forces of a hidden supernatural realm. Forces that had watched, waited, and now prepared to intervene in the lives of those daring enough to challenge their ordained paths. Their parting that night was bittersweet, steeped in unspoken promises and the grim awareness that their journey together was fraught with peril. As dawn crept stealthily over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of hope and forewarning, both Zoe and Rorik retreated into the solitude of their own thoughts. They had each tasted the raw intensity of an encounter that defied mortal conventions, and both sensed that the dark undercurrents of past deceptions were poised to alter the course of their lives irrevocably. In the silent wake of their meeting, Avalon Bay seemed to hold a collective breath, a fragile interlude before the inevitable storm of revelations would break over them once more, unraveling the delicate balance between destiny and free will. The night had gifted them with an introduction not only to each other but also to the labyrinth of secrets that would challenge their very existence. The promise of what was to come lingered in the charged air as the first light of dawn began to filter through the departing night, signaling that their fates were now inseparably entwined in a narrative that was only just beginning. Beneath the pallid glow of a waning moon, Avalon Bay revealed a more somber undercurrent of mystery and turmoil. As dawn's early light timidly crept over the horizon, Zoe awoke with an insistent urgency, a lingering echo of the cryptic message that had haunted her thoughts throughout the night. The message was more than a mere summons. It was a piercing reminder of secrets concealed under layers of family history and supernatural intrigue. Shadows of betrayal, long interwoven with the fabric of her existence, began to emerge from the corners of her mind, urging her to confront a past that had always seemed both intimate and evasive. In the quiet solitude of her modest apartment, decorated with relics of bygone eras and handwritten journals passed down by her grandmother, Zoe sat at a weathered desk. The room, perfumed with the scent of old books and faint traces of lavender, felt like a sanctuary in which memories and mysteries coexisted. Her heart pounded as she reread the terse message on her phone. The digital words resonated with an almost ancient cadence, as if the technology itself were a vessel for echoes of her lineage. Determined yet apprehensive, she resolved to uncover the truth behind the family heirloom, a symbol of a betrayal so profound that it threatened to dismantle the very foundation of her identity. Across town, in the stately mansion perched upon a rocky cliff, Rorik wrestled with his own inner maelstrom. His role as the Alpha was a mantle not only of leadership and protection but also of an enduring loneliness that no force of nature could disperse. In the quiet confines of his study, he scrolled through old manuscripts and faded photographs, reminders of a legacy shrouded in honor and cursed secrets. Every object in the room, from the time-worn leather-bound journal to the ancient emblem carved into the mahogany desk, spoke of sacrifices made in the name of power and duty. Rorik's mind drifted back to that fateful evening on the cliffs when Zoe's eyes had revealed both defiance and vulnerability. Their brief encounter had ignited a spark, a longing to heal old wounds and challenge the destiny that had long dictated the lives of his kind. The convergence of their worlds was now inevitable. Zoe's quest for answers led her to the local historical archives, where faded documents and fragile parchment held stories of her ancestors, a lineage intertwined with both supernatural marvels and bitter treachery. In a cramped back room of the town's venerable library, she discovered an old ledger inscribed with names and dates in an elegant yet cryptic script. One passage in particular described a scandal from decades past, a forbidden alliance between a human woman of noble descent and a powerful shifter, a liaison condemned by family honor and steeped in tragic consequences. The revelation sent shivers down her spine. Was this the root of the betrayal hinted at by her mysterious message? Even as Zoe pored over the ancient documents, Rorik's thoughts diverged between duty and desire. The Pack's elders had long warned him about the dangers of intermingling with outsiders, yet he was irresistibly drawn to Zoe's fierce spirit and resolute determination. At a council meeting that evening, a gathering held in an ancestral hall veiled in echoes of tradition and solemn oaths, Rorik's mind was not entirely on the matters of Pack politics. His heart remained tethered to the image of Zoe, and he vowed silently to protect the fragile bond that had begun to blossom between them. In that timeless moment, the whispers of ancient lore and the immutable laws of nature clashed with the possibility of rewriting destiny itself. While dusk settled over the city like a shroud, the disparate lives of Zoe and Rorik continued to move inexorably toward each other. Zoe sought solace in the words of her grandmother's diaries, reading passages that spoke of a time when familial loyalty was both a blessing and a curse. One entry in particular recounted a bitter betrayal, a secret so devastating that it had fractured the family for generations. A legacy tarnished by deceit can only be cleansed by facing its shadow, her grandmother had written in a delicate, looping script. The profundity of that message struck Zoe deeply. If she were to reclaim her rightful destiny, she knew that she must confront the sins of the past head-on. Driven by a newfound resolve, Zoe arranged to meet an old family friend, Mr. Carlyle, a reclusive historian known for his encyclopedic knowledge of Avalon Bay's hidden narratives. In a secluded cafe lined with creaking wooden floors and dim amber lights, Mr. Carlyle revealed details that left her reeling. "Your family was once at the center of a fabled pact between mortal kind and the shifters," he murmured, his voice laden with both regret and reverence. "That pact was sealed with blood and betrayal, a secret that some would go to extreme lengths to keep hidden." His words, uttered in a hushed tone, painted a vivid picture of a legacy marred by conflict. "If you wish to reclaim what was taken, you must look beyond the surface and question every familiar narrative." This advice, though cryptic, resonated with Zoe's innermost yearning for truth and redemption. Concurrently, Rorik was delving deeper into the obscured annals of his own history. Late one night, while poring over forbidden texts in his private library, he stumbled upon a fragment of prophecy, a foretelling of an encounter that would unite two estranged souls and set in motion events that could either resurrect a shattered legacy or doom them to a cycle of despair. The prophecy, written in an archaic dialect interlaced with symbols and metaphors, recounted a time when the convergence of human passion and shifter might would create an alliance capable of healing old scars. "The heart that dares to defy its fate shall mend what was once broken," it declared, igniting hope and a fierce determination within him. For Rorik, this was a challenge, a call to not only embrace Zoe but also to confront the darkness lurking behind years of unspoken betrayals. Their inner journey soon reached an inevitable crossroads when fate intervened in a manner both unexpected and dramatic. Zoe received another enigmatic message, this time accompanied by a sketch, a rough drawing of the ancestral symbol that had featured so prominently in her grandmother's diaries. The symbol, an intricate amalgamation of a crescent moon and intertwined vines, represented both unity and the cyclical nature of redemption. The message's sender was hidden behind layers of anonymized digital anonymity, yet it carried an unmistakable tone of urgency and warning. Deep down, Zoe sensed that this new revelation was the catalyst that would force her to choose between the safety of familiar lies and the perilous pursuit of a transformative truth. Unable to stand idle in the face of such destiny, Zoe confided in her closest friend, Mara, whose pragmatic insights often served as a counterbalance to her idealistic quests. In the flickering light of a modest apartment, over cups of herbal tea steeped in calming aromas, the two discussed the implications of the messages and the possibility of a deeper conspiracy. "Zoe, you're chasing ghosts that might not be ready to let you go," Mara cautioned gently, her eyes locking with Zoe's in an unspoken plea for caution. "Sometimes facing the past means unearthing pains that you might not be prepared to heal." Yet, despite the palpable trepidation in Mara's tone, Zoe's voice trembled with determination as she replied, "I must face it, Mara. This legacy isn't just my burden, it is a tapestry of secrets and redemption that, if mended, could free us all from generations of betrayal." Meanwhile, Rorik's vigilance was rewarded as he detected unusual movements near the periphery of the Pact's territory, a sign that a rival faction, long envious of the Alpha's authority and haunted by their own ancestral grievances, had begun to stir. In hushed tones during a strategy meeting, one of his trusted lieutenants reported sightings of strangers cloaked in anonymity. "They move like shadows," the lieutenant confided, his voice barely above a whisper. "Their intent is obscured by darkness, yet their presence is a clear harbinger of conflict." Rorik's eyes narrowed as he contemplated the possibility of an external threat intent on exploiting the fissures in his pack's unity and his own personal vulnerabilities. "Our past teaches us that betrayal often comes from the most unexpected quarters," he murmured, the weight of unspoken truths pressing upon him. As the day unfurled its layers of suspense, both Zoe and Rorik found themselves inexorably drawn toward a long-forgotten mansion on the outskirts of the city, a relic of a time when the interplay between mortals and shifters was a delicate dance of trust and treachery. The mansion, cloaked in ivy and guarded by the whispers of bygone eras, was the repository of family relics and half-remembered legends. Its creaking corridors and dimly lit rooms seemed to breathe the sorrow and hope of countless generations. For Zoe, this house was a tangible link to the secrets buried within her bloodline, while for Rorik, it evoked memories of a promise made long ago, a promise to protect the truths that defined his kind. In a fortuitous twist of fate, their paths converged at the mansion's grand foyer. Zoe, clutching an old leather-bound journal provided by Mr. Carlyle, and Rorik, with a guarded curiosity reflecting both concern and longing, crossed paths in a silent yet electric moment. The atmosphere, heavy with anticipation and history, crackled with the intangible energy of past collisions and unspoken confessions. "I've been searching for answers," Zoe admitted, her voice both trembling and resolute as she opened the journal for him to see. "Every word in this record hints at secrets that have haunted my family, and perhaps yours as well." Rorik's gaze softened with empathy yet steeled with determination. "The labyrinth of our past often conceals the key to our redemption," he replied, the metaphoric weight of his role as alpha evident in every syllable. Their brief exchange, layered with meaning and fraught with unspoken promises, crystallized a mutual understanding. Standing together amid the faded splendor of ancestral relics, they prepared to face an imminent revelation, a secret that would intertwine their fates irrevocably. As they ventured deeper into the mansion's forbidden halls, each step echoed like a heartbeat of the past resounding into the present. Murals depicting legendary battles and cryptic symbols adorned the walls, and every artifact whispered its own story of honor and loss. In a secluded study hidden behind a false wall, a silvered mirror inscribed with family crests beckoned them to peer into reflections that transcended the mere physical. In that moment, both were confronted with the duality of their natures, the mortal hearts beating within supernatural frames, reminding them that each truth uncovered was a step closer to either salvation or ruin. A sudden, foreboding creak from the ancient floorboards shattered the stillness, and a hidden door slowly swung open, revealing a narrow passage lined with relics of a forgotten era. "Could this be where the final piece of our legacy lies?" Zoe whispered, her eyes wide with a blend of fear and anticipation. Rorik responded with measured calm. "Sometimes, in order to break the chains of betrayal, one must first confront the remains of what was left behind." Their footsteps, soft yet determined, carried them deeper into a realm where the light of truth flickered amidst the encroaching shadows of hidden agendas. In the farthest chamber of that secluded passage, they discovered a collection of time-worn letters and a sealed envelope bearing the emblem of Zoe's family crest. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable, a calligraphic flourish that hinted at a long-lost love and a sorrowful farewell. As Zoe carefully broke the seal, the faded ink revealed a confession of betrayal so profound that it threatened to dismantle the fragile structure of her beliefs. The letter spoke of forbidden alliances, acts of desperation, and the inexorable push of fate that had set her ancestors on a collision course with their own destinies. "Why was this hidden for so long?" she asked, the tremor in her voice betraying the impact of the revelation. Rorik's presence beside her was a silent promise of solidarity as he added, "Every secret kept in the dark yearns for the light, but sometimes that light casts long, unforgiving shadows." Their whispered dialogue mingled with the rustle of old paper, creating a symphony of revelations that resonated far beyond the confines of that ancient chamber. In the charged silence that followed, a new realization dawned upon them both. The betrayal inscribed in the letter was not solely an act of treachery from the past, it was a blueprint for the present, a meticulously planned strategy designed to undermine their very union. As the weight of this knowledge settled around them, the flickering candlelight seemed to accentuate the intricate patterns of sorrow and defiance on their faces. The mansion's atmosphere, heavy with the remnant anguish of ages past, bore silent witness to the birth of a perilous journey that would test the strength of their bond in ways neither had imagined. Before they could fully grasp the magnitude of their discovery, a distant yet deliberate knock echoed through the stone walls, a knock that signified an arrival both forewarned and unexpected. The intrusion, echoing down the narrow corridor, sent a ripple of anxiety through the air. "We are not alone," Zoe murmured, her eyes darting toward the imposing wooden door that now stood ajar. Rorik's response was measured but resolute. "The past is about to meet the present and we must be ready." In that charged moment, with fate tightening its grip and the mansion itself seeming to pulse with ancestral energy, the realization dawned upon them that the true test of redemption was only just beginning. The old letters and the secret they unveiled were harbingers of an impending confrontation, a reckoning with forces that had long operated in silence, waiting for this very moment to reclaim their due. The chamber vibrated with the gravity of unspoken promises and the inevitability of a clash between the legacies of old and the relentless desire to forge a new destiny. As the knock echoed once again, a foreboding precursor to the unraveling of carefully concealed betrayals, Zoe and Rorik exchanged glances heavy with both resolve and trepidation. In that silent communion, the path forward crystallized into a single, undeniable truth. To mend the fractures of the past, they must now face a challenge that threatened not only their individual hearts but also the fragile hope that the supernatural and the mortal could exist in harmonious union. Together, hearts alight with both determination and wounded longing, they stepped toward the door, fully aware that what lay beyond might shatter their world or liberate them from centuries of darkness. In that suspended moment, rife with equal parts anticipation and dread, their journey toward understanding, and ultimately redemption, entered a critical new phase, where each breath could be their last and every revelation a step further into a labyrinth of secrets. Ebullient yet burdened with truths too weighty to ignore, they braced themselves for what awaited beyond that door, a threshold between the world they knew and the dangerous, transformative unknown. Under the oppressive weight of uncertainty, the door swung open to reveal a silhouette enshrouded in darkness. The sound of cautious footsteps echoed in the silent corridor, as Zoe and Rorik exchanged a final glance of solidarity before stepping into the unknown. The air was thick with charged anticipation and the unmistakable scent of old secrets. Every heartbeat resonated like a drum of war, urging them to brace against the invisible forces conspiring to shatter their tenuous bond. On the other side of the door stood an enigmatic figure whose appearance was both haunting and oddly familiar. Clad in a long dark coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured most of his features, the stranger's presence commanded immediate attention. "You have come at last," the figure intoned in a voice that was both mellifluous and laden with sorrow. His words, laced with an accent that hinted at faraway origins, reverberated off the ancient stone walls. "I bear news that will dismantle the veneer of the past and expose the truth of our shared destiny." Zoe's pulse quickened as she instinctively stepped closer to Rorik, her eyes narrowed in determination. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice barely masking the tremor of apprehension. The stranger's eyes, glinting like shards of moonlit glass beneath the hat's shadow, met hers with an intensity that seemed to pierce through layers of guarded resilience. "I am Caradoc," he said solemnly, "a keeper of the legacy that binds your bloodline and my own kind in a covenant of betrayal and hope." Rorik's stance grew taut with a blend of skepticism and concern. "A keeper?" he echoed, the word hanging in the air like a challenge. "Our kind does not simply hand over secrets without knowing the worth of the cost. What truth do you carry that could possibly rewrite the destinies imposed upon us by ancestors long dead?" Caradoc's smile was grim as he regarded the pair, as if weighing the merits of trust against the burden of revelation. "I carry the confessions of your forefathers and the evidence of a deceit that stretches back through the ages," he replied. "The betrayal that fractured families and divided loyalties has now come full circle, and its consequences are destined to shake the very foundations of both mortal and shifter worlds." In that moment, the ornate chamber around them transformed from a quiet relic of the past to a sanctum of impending truths. Caradoc led them into a vaulted chamber lined with ancient armaments, dusty tomes, and relics of a time when magic and the mundane intermingled seamlessly. The ambient light flickered against the stone, playing over faces etched with determination and trepidation. At the center of the room, on an intricately carved pedestal, lay an obsidian box adorned with mystic symbols that pulsed faintly with an inner light. "It is within this box that the final piece of the puzzle lies," Caradoc explained, his fingers delicately hovering over the artifact. "For generations your family has safeguarded a secret that transcends mere mortal intrigue. Hidden within is evidence of an alliance, a sacred pact forged under duress, mingled with betrayal and sacrifice. It is the truth that binds the fate of your ancestors and holds the potential for either salvation or utter ruin." Zoe's heart pounded as she reached out, her hand trembling with both hesitation and resolve. "After all these years of circumstantial half-truths and unresolved resentments, you claim that this box contains evidence of everything that has been hidden from us?" Her voice was both accusatory and yearning, a plea for liberation from the chains of a history too painful to fully comprehend. Caradoc's eyes softened momentarily, conveying both regret and a sense of duty. "Yes, Zoe. But be warned, the revelation that awaits may shatter the illusions you have clung to for so long. It is not merely a document or relic, it is a mirror held up to your soul, a reflection of choices made and futures lost." As the trio circled the pedestal, the atmosphere seemed to pulse with the gravity of fate. Rorik's gaze drifted to the intricate carvings on the pedestal, each groove and etching a testament to struggles fought in eras gone by. "Why come to us now, Caradoc?" he queried. "Why reveal this truth after so many years of silence?" Caradoc paused, and in the quiet that followed, the room itself appeared to hold its breath. "Because the balance is shifting," he murmured. "Dark forces, long dormant, have begun to stir. Rival factions within the shifter community and external entities hungry for the power once confined to myth are mobilizing. The secrets of the past are no longer dormant, they are demanding resolution before they consume what little stability remains in our worlds." A heavy silence ensued, punctuated only by the echo of their collective breaths. Zoe's mind raced as she pondered the implications of Caradoc's words. The possibility that rival forces were mobilizing to exploit these ancient truths sent a chill down her spine. Yet, within that chill lay an ember of defiance. A realization that the very power of the past might be used to reshape a future where betrayal no longer ruled. "What do you propose we do?" she asked quietly, feeling the first flicker of hope mix with dread. "How can we restore balance without repeating the mistakes of our ancestors?" Caradoc's answer was measured, his tone reverberating with the wisdom of hard-lived years. "We must confront the sins of the past head-on," he declared. "In exposing the truth encapsulated within this box, you have the opportunity to mend what was once irrevocably broken. But the path will be treacherous, and the sacrifices demanded might cut deeper than any wound previously borne." Rorik clenched his jaw as he glanced at Zoe, his eyes reflecting a storm of conflicting emotions. "You speak of a reckoning," he stated rather than asked, "one that will test the very limits of our resolve. If we are to uncover this secret, we must be unwavering in our commitment to one another and our own truth." The intensity of his gaze ignited a spark in Zoe, a shared determination that resonated beyond the whispered promises and unspoken fears of the present moment. "I'm ready to face whatever comes," she asserted, her voice steady with conviction. "Even if the truth is painful, it cannot be hidden forever. I refuse to let my family's past dictate the fate of our future any longer." Caradoc nodded appreciatively, as if recognizing in them the potential to catalyze a change that had long been overdue. With a solemn motion, he reached for the obsidian box and slowly opened it. Within, nestled among layers of faded velvet, lay a collection of documents and artifacts, an amalgamation of photographs, letters, and a peculiar key crafted from a metal that seemed to glow under the faint luminescence of the chamber. The pieces told a story of power, deception, and an unholy alliance that had torn through generations. One weathered letter, penned in an archaic hand, detailed a clandestine meeting between key figures of both mortal and shifter communities, a meeting that had sealed a pact fraught with deception and haunted by regrets. As Zoe carefully unfurled the fragile paper, her eyes widened with disbelief. The letter described how a forefather, seemingly revered and noble, had brokered a deal that traded loyalty for ambition, ensuring that future generations would bear the scars of his treachery. This cannot be," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of the revelation. Rorik stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he examined the documents with a mixture of professional detachment and personal anguish. "It appears that the sins of the past are heavier than even I had suspected," he conceded. "Our forefathers not only courted disaster but wove it into the fabric of our very existence." The gravity of the situation pressed in on them from all sides. Caradoc, sensing the turmoil within, spoke gently yet firmly, "You stand at the crossroads of destiny. The next steps you take, what you choose to believe, what you decide to defend, will resonate far beyond the confines of your personal struggles. This is a turning point, where the light of truth can either dispel the darkness that has long held sway or cast an even deeper shadow over your future." As the trio absorbed the magnitude of the unveiled secret, an unforeseen tremor rattled the chamber. The ancient walls themselves seemed to groan under the strain of an unseen force, and the sound of distant, insistent footsteps hinted at the arrival of others drawn by the disturbance. Rorik's eyes flickered with a warning light. "We are not alone," he murmured, the timbre of his voice betraying the sudden awareness of impending danger. Caradoc's posture stiffened, and Zoe instinctively gripped the fragile letter as if it were a talisman. A muffled commotion from the corridor signaled that the rival faction had arrived, their intentions as murky as the shifting tide. "Prepare yourselves," Rorik commanded in a voice that brooked no dissent. His gaze, filled with steely resolve and the quiet fury of a wounded protector, locked onto Caradoc. "We must secure these revelations and ensure that no one seeks to twist this truth for their own gain." Zoe's mind reeled with both terror and resolve. The collision between past and present, between betrayal and redemption, was unfolding faster than she had ever dared imagine. In the flickering light of the ancient chamber, alliances were about to be tested and the cost of unearthing the past would soon be measured in scars, both seen and unseen. The delicate balance of power hung by a thread, and each breath seemed to herald either the promise of liberation or the dread of irrevocable loss. Zoe's heart pounded with the fierce rhythm of determination, and as she silently vowed to fight for a future free of ancestral burden, she could not help but wonder if the truth, once fully revealed, might irrevocably alter the very essence of who she was meant to become. With footsteps approaching and the tension mounting to a breaking point, The three stood firm in the face of destiny's call, bound together by the gravity of secrets and the unyielding desire for redemption. The room vibrated with the promise of an imminent clash, each beat of the heart an echo of fate drawing nearer with every passing second. In that critical juncture, the fragile promise of hope contended with the specter of treachery, and the future lay suspended in a moment that crackled with electric peril. Emerging from the dim corridor of secrets, the clash between old loyalties and the new resolve surged into full confrontation. In the flickering gloom of the ancient mansion, the rival faction, shrouded in mystery and hostility, advanced with deliberate, predatory steps. Their presence was heralded by the low rumble of encroaching turmoil that echoed through the time-worn halls. Zoe, Rorik, and Caradoc braced themselves in the heart of the chamber where the obsidian box had already divulged centuries of betrayal. The energy in the room grew volatile, and every shadow seemed laden with peril. A group of adversaries emerged from the long corridors, their faces masked by determination and grief. Their leader, a tall and stern figure with eyes like hardened flint, stepped forward, his voice resonant with authority and bitter purpose. "Your meddling in the past's affairs has consequences," he intoned. "We have kept these secrets locked away, ensuring that our legacy does not crumble in front of those who dare defy tradition." His words, heavy with ancient grudges, ignited a spark of defiance in Rorik's eyes. Rorik's tone was both measured and forceful as he responded, "Tradition must evolve if it is to survive. The sins of our ancestors cannot chain us to a destiny of perpetual betrayal. Tonight, we face not only our history but those who would keep us in endless subjugation by outdated pacts." The leader's eyes narrowed as he considered Rorik's challenge, and an uneasy silence fell over the gathered adversaries. Caradoc, standing resolute beside them, interjected with quiet urgency, "The truth, no matter how painful, is a force of liberation. You hide behind these antiquated creeds, but the world we face now demands change, a reckoning that does not bow to fear." In the charged atmosphere of the chamber, a series of rapid exchanges unfolded. The rival factions spread out strategically, encircling the trio. Their every movement was calculated, their words laced with the bitterness of families torn apart by treachery. Zoe felt the weight of her family's secret converge with her personal battle for emancipation. The documents she had uncovered burned in her mind, a relentless reminder that the legacy she fought to overturn was built upon betrayal and unyielding pain. "Who are you to decide what remains hidden?" Zoe demanded, her voice rising above the murmurs of assembly. Her eyes, alight with a blend of defiance and sorrow, fixated on the masked leader. "Are you guardians of honor, or are you prisoners of a past that no longer holds relevance? I refuse to be shackled by the errors of those long gone." Her voice broke through the tension with a raw intensity that silenced the murmuring crowd momentarily. The leader's expression deepened with a storm of conflicting emotions before he replied, "I am Valen, charged with preserving a balance that has kept chaos at bay. The secrets within that box have been your family's and our burden for generations. To reveal them now is to plunge our world into uncharted peril." His tone, though stern, betrayed a profound melancholy, a burden he had carried in solitude for all these years. As the debate escalated, the corridor's stale air gave way to the sound of hurried footsteps and clashing echoes from outside the mansion. The distant murmur of reinforcements, arriving allies and new threats alike, betrayed the fragile barrier between the sanctuary of the past and the relentless advance of the present. Rorik's pack and remnants of the rival faction had gathered in anticipation of an inevitable battle, and the mansion itself trembled as if it had become a living battleground. Caradoc, aware that words alone could not stave off the coming storm, offered a pivotal proposition. "Rather than resort to conflict that will only deepen our scars, let us uncover the entirety of our ancestral transgressions. Only then can we decide how to move forward. Let us share the evidence and expose the hidden truths to all involved, so that every faction, every soul touched by our legacy, may choose redemption over endless retribution." His earnest appeal resonated with a mix of hope and despair, a call to break the chains of silence that had plagued them for too long. Valen's gaze swept the room as he weighed Caradoc's words with cautious skepticism. "And if the truth incites further strife? If the revelations cause more pain than healing?" he questioned, his voice a trembling blend of anger and regret. His inner turmoil was palpable, caught between his duty as a custodian of tradition and a yearning for a future free from ancestral bonds. "I have seen what raw, unfiltered truth can do. It can either mend or shatter the delicate fabric of trust between us." A palpable stillness enveloped the chamber as both sides considered the weight of that inquiry. Rorik's jaw tightened, his eyes reflecting the scars of battles fought both internal and external. "Then we stand at a crossroads," he declared. "We can choose to cling to these relics of a broken past, or we can embrace the challenge of reconciliation, even if it means facing the pain of exposure." His voice was resolute, a beacon of determination in a room fraught with historical grievances. Amid the charged silence, Zoe felt a resurgence of conviction well up within her. "I will not allow fear to dictate our future," she proclaimed, her voice steady, echoing off the ancient stone. "Our destiny is not predetermined by our forefathers' misdeeds. We have the power to forge a new path, one where redemption is possible even in the face of the harshest truths." Her words rippled through the assembled figures, stirring a sense of possibility amid despair. As the discussion reached a fevered pitch, the distant clamor of an approaching storm outside mingled with the tension in the room. Rain began to pelt the leaded windows, and thunder rolled ominously in the distance, a natural accompaniment to the internal tempest raging within those gathered. The mansion, once a silent witness to legacy and secrecy, now felt like a crucible forging the future from the molten remnants of the past. Valen's hardened gaze softened momentarily as he weighed Zoe's impassioned plea against the backdrop of his own memories of loss. "Perhaps," he conceded in a low, contemplative tone, "the time has come to relinquish the illusions we have so carefully constructed. If truth is to be our guide, then we must be willing to confront it, even if it devastates the established order." His admission, though laced with vulnerability, signaled the potential for a seismic shift in allegiance. It was at that moment when the mansion's walls shuddered with the impact of a heavy blow, an explosion of sound that shattered the fragile calm. From one of the adjoining corridors, a barrage of footsteps and shouts erupted, heralding the arrival of a third faction whose motives were shrouded in equal parts enmity and desperation. The vibrations of the tumult reverberated through the stone floors, compelling every soul in the room to brace for what would undoubtedly be a confrontation that could not be deferred. In the midst of the unfolding chaos, Rorik moved as a guardian, positioning himself between Zoe and the encroaching threat. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his voice unyielding despite the storm of adrenaline and fear swirling around him. His protective instinct fused with his newfound resolve to break free from the legacy of betrayal, lending strength to his every movement. Caradoc, swift in his own way, secured the fragile evidence, protecting the documents and the key with a careful urgency that betrayed the personal cost of his duty. Valen, now caught between the need to preserve order and the undeniable pull of reformation, hesitated at the threshold of the impending melee. His eyes darted between the emerging assailants and the steadfast figures of Zoe and Rorik. "We cannot let them seize this moment to rewrite our history through violence," he admonished, his tone laced with both command and regret. Yet even as he spoke, the sound of clashing footsteps and the murmur of rising conflict grew louder, marking the point of no return. A cacophony of voices erupted in the corridor as the third faction forced its way into the central chamber. Their leader, a lithe and agile figure whose presence radiated both cunning and ruthlessness, called out sharply, "The time for deliberation has ended. We want the legacy, and we will take it." Her words sliced through the tension like a blade, setting off a chain reaction of defensive postures and hastily drawn weapons. Rorik met her gaze with unwavering determination, his declaration echoing his inner metamorphosis. "We will not be pawns in a game played by those who thrive on our suffering," he proclaimed, stepping forward with a force that combined both primal instinct and the intellect of a seasoned leader. Amid the rapid escalation, Zoe found herself torn between the instinct to flee and the resolve to stand firm. The flicker of lightning revealed the vivid expressions of fear and anticipation on every face, a mosaic of souls each fighting for their version of salvation. She glanced at Caradoc, whose eyes brimmed with an unspoken determination to see the truth unveiled no matter the cost. In that fleeting moment, Zoe realized that this reckoning was not merely a battle for forgotten secrets but a crucible that would test the very essence of who they were meant to become. The confrontation spiraled into a surreal ballet of words and wills. Shouts of defiance were interlaced with the urgent clang of ancient armaments meeting modern resolve. As every faction moved with swift precision, the mansion's corridors became an arena where the old world collided with the new, where every blow carried the weight of centuries and every whispered threat resonated with the agony of yesteryears. Amid this chaos, alliances were forged in the heat of battle, and the long-dormant embers of passion and rebellion flared with a startling brilliance. Zoe, gathering every ounce of courage, advanced toward the heart of the fray. "We deserve to write our own destiny," she cried out, her voice clear and resolute amidst the chaos. Every syllable was a defiant challenge to the forces determined to keep the past buried and to the betrayals that had long poisoned their bloodlines. The rallying cry reverberated off the cold stone walls, igniting a spark in the hearts of those who had silently suffered under the weight of inherited injustice. For a moment, time seemed to pause. The storm outside reached a crescendo as rain lashed against the windows and the thunder roared with a timeless fury that echoed the struggle within. In that suspended heartbeat, all factions, regardless of their allegiance, recognized the futility of clinging to scars that had long defined them. But even as that unity glimmered, the delicate balance teetered on a knife's edge, each second laden with the possibility of irrevocable loss or transformative redemption. As violence and dialogue intermingled in a chaotic dance, Rorik and Zoe locked eyes. In that gaze, unspoken understandings converged, a mutual pledge that neither betrayal nor bloodshed would dictate their future. They moved as one, preparing to confront the tide of hostile intentions with the shield of truth and the sword of a reformed destiny. In the backdrop of clashing ideologies and the soaring rumble of nature's own uproar, the ancient documents and relics lay testament to a history that was about to be rewritten. With the mansion trembling under the weight of impending violence, every soul present braced for the next moment. A moment when the storm of conflict might either obliterate their very identity or purify it in the crucible of reckoning. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, yet the determination to emerge unbound from ancestral curses burned brighter than ever before. Every heartbeat echoed with defiance, every breath a commitment to unshackle themselves from the chains of a doomed legacy. In a final, heart-stopping instance before the collision escalated beyond control, Zoe's voice rang out among the cacophony. "Let the truth be our guiding light," she declared, her words merging with the thunder as if the very heavens had sanctioned her plea. And in that split second, a heartbeat before chaos claimed the room, the future wavered on the edge of promise and peril, waiting to be defined by the choices made in the crucible of this reckoning. In the midst of the swirling maelstrom of shattered allegiances and clashing destinies, the mansion's corridors became an arena where past sins and future hopes converged. The battle that had erupted was now a chaotic symphony of defiant cries, echoing footsteps, and clanging metal. Every face was marked by the determination to break free from the oppressive weight of ancestral betrayal and seize control of the narrative that had long been dictated by forces beyond their control. Zoe and Rorik, their eyes ablaze with a shared urgency, stood at the epicenter of this maelstrom. The fragile documents and relics that once silently bore witness to untold deceptions now glimmered in the broken candlelight as tokens of a truth they were resolute to unveil. Amidst the melee of voices and the relentless rhythm of violence, Zoe's voice cut through with fervor. "We cannot let our past define us any longer. Tonight we reclaim the narrative." Her words resonated far beyond the walls of the ancient estate. They served as both a rallying cry and a declaration of independence, a promise that the legacy of pain could be transformed into a testament of liberation. Rorik, his posture unwavering, stepped forward and interposed himself between the factions, his gaze piercing the encroaching darkness with the resolute intensity of an alpha who had already transcended the limitations of tradition. "For too long, the sins of our forefathers have chained us to this cycle of betrayal," he declared. "Now is the moment for redemption. Let us expose the truth and rebuild on its honest foundation." Even as chaos swirled, a tangible shift began to manifest itself in the hearts of those present. The rival faction's leader, Valen, whose countenance had been etched with sorrow and resolute determination, hesitated before responding. His eyes, reflecting countless memories of loss and regret, flickered with a hesitant hope that perhaps there was another way forward, a path that might reconcile the fractured souls of this embattled community. "If truth is the key," he murmured slowly, "then it must be shared by all, not hoarded as a weapon against our own kin." His concession sent ripples of cautious optimism through the room. At that decisive moment, Caradoc re-entered the fray, clutching the illuminated relics, the documents, photographs, and the luminous key that had silently guarded the secrets for so long. His voice, now calm and imbued with the wisdom of a man who had witnessed both the ravages of betrayal and the beauty of reconciliation, addressed the assembled factions. "These relics are not merely evidence of past misdeeds," he explained. "They are our inheritance, a complex tapestry of both shame and honor. To heal, we must embrace all of it and in doing so, unlock the power to reshape our future." As the echoes of his words spread across the chamber, the tension in the air began to dissipate, replaced by an almost palpable sense of collective resolve. One by one, members of the rival faction lowered their weapons. In this brief, fragile silence, The mansion's ancient stones seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, a quiet acknowledgement that centuries of darkness might finally yield to the possibility of light. Yet, just as the atmosphere shifted toward tentative unity, a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor moved through the assembly, a reminder that destiny, ever capricious, often had one final twist in store. Rorik's eyes met Zoe's, and in that look, they both sensed an undercurrent that defied the immediate calm. As the murmurs of reconciliation began to swell, the luminous key Caradoc held began to resonate with an otherworldly glow. The symbols etched on its surface shivered as if stirred by an ancient incantation, and from its gleam emerged a spectral reflection of a figure once believed lost to time, a long-forgotten progenitor whose visage bore the dual legacy of both hope and sorrow. The apparition, ethereal yet unmistakably real, swept silently into the center of the room. Its eyes, deep wells of unspoken grief and fierce determination, held the gaze of every soul present. "I am Edrin," the spectral figure intoned, voice echoing with both a regal command and a poignant lament. "I was the keeper of the pact that bound your fates, a pact forged in desperation and sealed with the blood of those who dared to defy destiny. I witnessed the first betrayal and bore the consequences of choices made in the twilight between hope and despair." Silence fell anew as every member of the assembly, the shifters, the mortal heirs, and even the rebels once so committed to preserving the old order, listened in rapt awe. Edrin's unexpected emergence turned their fleeting reconciliation into an impromptu confrontation with a truth far older and more profound than any one faction could have imagined. "For generations, my silence was assumed to be finality, my betrayal an irreversible curse," Edrin continued, his spectral gaze sweeping over each face. "But now I return to offer you a chance at true redemption. The legacy you inherit is not immutable. It is a living tapestry that awaits your reweaving with threads of forgiveness, unity, and the courage to confront even the most painful truths." The weight of his words interwove with the tumult of the previous moments, igniting within each onlooker both a dread of the cost and a fervent hope for renewal. Zoe, her eyes glistening with both defiance and newfound understanding, stepped forward toward the apparition. "We have suffered for too long under the burden of secrets," she whispered, voice trembling yet resolute. "Our families, our very souls, have been defined by a betrayal that is not entirely our own. Tonight we choose to break the cycle." Rorik's voice joined hers, firm and compassionate. "We stand on the precipice of a new beginning, a future where we can draw strength from the lessons of the past without being chained to its errors. Edrin, if you can guide us, show us how to rewrite this legacy, then let it be so." Edrin's spectral figure brightened, his smile a bittersweet mixture of regret and hope. "Redemption, like the full moon over Avalon Bay, rises after the darkest of nights," he pronounced. "But know that every truth revealed exacts a price. The path to liberation will demand sacrifices, not just of blood, but of fear, pride, and the remnants of old resentments." At that decisive juncture, an overwhelming wave of unity swept through the chamber. Valen, who had once embodied the rigid adherence to ancient creeds, extended his hand toward Zoe and Rorik. "I, too, have seen the madness of clinging to secrets," he admitted, voice soft yet resolute. "Let us join together to forge a new pact, a covenant of transparency and healing." His words, both humble and liberating, resonated deeply with every person present. In a symbolic act, Caradoc, Rorik, Zoe, Valen, and several leaders from the opposing factions gathered around the obsidian box and the glowing key. Together, they placed their hands upon the relics, an unspoken pledge to embrace the power of truth and to stand united against the old cycles of treachery. As they did, the luminous key pulsed one final time, releasing a cascade of gentle, radiant light that washed over each face, as if cleansing them of the burdens inherited from a painful past. The spectral figure of Edrin slowly began to fade, his final words echoing like an incantation of both farewell and benediction. "May this light guide you through the darkness of remembrance, and may you build a future where every soul is free to love, to forgive, and to rise above the confines of yesterday." With that, Edrin vanished, leaving in his stead a silence that was at once reflective and profoundly hopeful. In the aftermath of that transcendent moment, the mansion's very air seemed to change, less a claustrophobic bastion of buried grudges and more a hallowed sanctuary for rebirth. The shattered remnants of conflict gave way to tentative dialogues of collaboration and mutual understanding. Even as the storm outside began to abate and the first blush of a new dawn crept through the leaded windows, a profound transformation was taking root within every heart present. Zoe's face, once etched with the scars of familial betrayal, now shone with the luminescence of renewed purpose. In the quiet moments that followed, she and Rorik walked together through the mansion's corridors, each step a symbolic farewell to the chains of the past and an embrace of the uncertain, yet infinitely promising horizon of their future. Their journey had been wrought with sacrifice and heartache, but through the crucible of redemption, they had discovered that every end could also be a beginning. As the factions slowly dispersed into the night, no longer as enemies defined by old secrets but as guardians of a shared destiny, a single unexpected twist of fate sealed their bond. Hidden beneath layers of ancient texts among the relics was a final letter, penned by an ancestor whose identity had long remained a mystery. This letter revealed that the genesis of their intertwined fates was not solely the consequence of betrayal, but rather an act of profound sacrifice intended to protect both mortal and shifter worlds from a calamity yet to come. The revelation, subtle yet earth-shattering, confirmed that their union was preordained not merely by passion or rebellion, but by a love that spanned centuries and was destined to restore balance to a fractured legacy. In that climactic moment of understanding, every conflict resolved into a single unifying truth: the power to change destiny lay within their own hearts. With the ancient curse unraveled and the promise of a future unburdened by deceit taking hold, Zoe and Rorik, along with their newfound allies, stepped out into the burgeoning light of a new day, a day that heralded not just survival, but the flourishing of a legacy reimagined through the lens of redemption, truth, and relentless hope.